Hey, what's up YouTube? So finally, I'm back. Before I went on holiday, I didn't have enough time to do a full review of the little Nano, so finally here is the video. Okay, so let's jump right into it. In this video, I'm going to focus on the details of the Nano. If you want to check out the unboxing or whatever in the quick look video, I'll put a link to that in the description, or it'll probably be on the side here. Okay, so what I didn't mention last time, one feature that the Nano has over the micro back label is it's got what iFi call S-balanced, which means that in either of the outputs, it's got balanced circuitry as well. So either of these can be used with a balanced set of headphones or IEMs. But of course, most of those do tend to be with 2.5mm plugs, whereas these are the standard 3.5, so you'll need an adapter from that. The other thing is in direct mode over here, the Nano does have quite a lot of hiss, especially with sensitive IEMs. I noticed this on the FiO F9, which aren't exactly the most sensitive, yet they still had quite a lot of hiss from direct. But in IE Match, as you'd expect, then it's completely quiet. The other thing that I found is that it can be a little picky with cables. Maybe this is just a firmware issue, or maybe it's an issue with USB Type-C. The reason I say this is because when I tested this out, I tested it with the Shanling M2S, and if I used the included blue USB cable, then there was no issues with the iFi. It would play fine for the most part. But when I used any other sort of USB extension cable, then it sometimes would work, sometimes it just wouldn't work at all. Now, some users have reported that they're getting some clicks, and I actually specifically remember one post being in the Shanling M2S forum on HeadFi saying that. So it might be a firmware issue, and if I remember correctly, they did say that they updated the firmware of the iFi and then it was fine. Personally, I didn't experience any of these clicks. What I did experience though is that sometimes the iFi would just stop producing any sound, and it doesn't matter if I reset the Shanling, but because then it would still produce the same, well, no sound. So the only way to fix that would be to turn off the iFi, turn it back on. A firmware update didn't seem to solve this, so maybe in the next firmware update we'll see a fix for that. Okay, so let's get on to what is probably the most important part of the iFi, and I'll also bring in its bigger brother here, the micro. Okay, so in the quick look, I did say that the iFi sounds pretty good, and I'm very surprised that the Nano, and I'm very surprised that iFi is only charging $200 for this device, because really it's a great sounding device. If there's one thing that we can always count on with iFi, it's that they know how to produce some damn fine sounding equipment. The Nano iDSD Black Label does deviate a little bit from its bigger brother, but it's honestly really close. It's almost as though, this is the only analogy I can really think of, it's almost as though the Nano is at that awkward age where, despite being the baby of the family, it can go toe-to-toe with an older sibling and really not break a sweat. It honestly, sonically is that close. Once you volume match them, then, because really it required an extended listening session for me, and the use of an A/B switch to really hear the differences between those two, and even then the differences are quite subtle. Okay, so once I was acclimated to both of their signatures and using the A/B switch to switch between them, and of course volume matched, it was easier to hear the Nano's, call it, shortcomings. Compared to the micro, the Nano has slightly warmer and more congested signature, where the micro tends to give the illusion of a bigger room. The Nano's presentation feels more akin to a studio. Now I'm guessing that for the iFi, I tend to switch it onto the minimum phase filter rather than bit perfect, so it does have a little bit more post and pre-ringing. And the listen filter on the Nano is also a minimum phase, but I'm going to guess that it's got a little bit less pre and post ringing than the minimum phase on the Micro, and maybe those like slight echoes is what's giving the iFi the illusion of being played in a bigger room. And the other reason I say is because the Micro just tends to have a bit of a longer decay, and again that's probably because of the pre and the post ringing that gives it that different signature. One area where I did find a bit larger of a difference is on how vocals are portrayed. Switching between the two, the extra refinement that goes into the Micro was a bit more apparent, where the Nano just displayed a bit more graininess in how vocals are portrayed. But again, honestly, it's really close between these two, so much so that I'm strongly considering buying one of these so that when I travel, I don't have to travel around with this brick. I can just take the little baby brother with, and I wouldn't miss the iFi. So why would somebody buy this instead of this? Well, the Micro does have more features. It's got a lot more power, obviously. It's got the RCA outputs, it's got extra digital inputs, it's got the bass boost, it's got the 3D effect, it's got a 1/4-inch jack if that's something you need, it's got different levels of IE match, it's got one extra type of filtering involved, so the iFi does have a lot more features. But why would you buy this over this? If you need one of those features, those extra features, or if you need all of those extra features. Other than that, honestly, this little thing right here is the bee's knees. I really am that impressed with what iFi have been able to do with the Nano. Another advantage that the Nano has over the Micro, other than the size and weight difference, is that it's able to play MQA formats. Now iFi did say that they're kind of looking into being able to upgrade the older products to play MQA, which would probably just be a firmware update. So if MQA is something that's important to you, well then the iFi is going to be the Micro is going to be a no-go to you anyways. You might as well just go straight for the Nano. So really, so far, the Nano looks like iFi's best value option so far. It's a brilliant little performer. And the price is just right. I mean, it costs less than half of what the Micro does. And honestly, if for the vast majority of people out there who are looking at getting a better sounding setup, especially if it's to be portable, I would recommend this over this every day of the week. The only thing that would make me hesitate just a little bit is that there's no bass boost on this, which for some music you would find useful just to liven it up a little bit if that's something that you want. But of course, this has to be connected to a type of DAP, so you can just do a little EQ magic within the software or the settings of the DAP. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the review. Thank you so much for watching. If you've got any questions or comments, please obviously leave them in the comment section below, and I'll catch you in the next review. Cheers, YouTube.